session. Okay, so on behalf of Vedas, which is a standing committee of Arya Samaj South Africa, I welcome you all to tonight's lectures, which is a series of lectures on Back to the Vedas. This is the online series as we are online right now, and this has been held successfully throughout the year on a monthly basis. The Samaj, Arya Samaj South Africa, is a long-established organization. In fact, we're closing to 100 within, I think, in 2 years' time. And we're currently 98 years old. That's how old the Samaj is in South Africa.
Nirod.
Okay. And what the Samaj basically strives towards a more progressive Hinduism, and we extend ourselves to all, in fact, to all of mankind. It's been founded by Maharishi Swami Dayanand, and we are guided by his principles, and we refer to as the 10 principles of the Arya Samaj. And in addition, we promote and disseminate the teaching of the Vedas. With the Samaj's long-standing history and association with many struggle heroes and leaders, we played our role towards the new democratic South Africa. Now, today we are proud to host a session on how Arya Samaj values shaped our lives in South Africa. And our presenter this evening is the ever charming and elegant gentleman with an uber super gift of the gab, Mr. Nirod Bramdo. So Mr. Nirod Bramdo, in my opinion, really needs no introduction. But however, out of respect and procedure, it is customary to introduce a guest speaker together with a CV. Briefly, I was told, but difficult I found when trying to put his CV together. So Nirodji, forgive me if I say too much or omit anything significant. So Nirodji hails from a family that founded and published for many years the very famous newspaper, The Leader. During his studies for a commercial degree at UDW in the 80s, I hope I got that right, he became an activist for justice and democracy. During his early career days as a journalist, he became a master of the English language. His leadership skills and command for the language launched him into the communication media world. He currently leads the African Sun Media Group. Well respected for his literary skills, Nirod serves on many editorial boards. In addition, he is the director at Honorary Consul Republic of Mauritius. He has edited many journals and wrote and still contributes to many columns in daily newspapers. The Bramdo is a close friend of the Arya Samaj. Is very familiar with its teachings and rich history. Since the Samaj being established in South Africa for such a long time, and Nirod as well is aware of its role towards the new democratic South Africa, it is pretty apt that today, together with Nirodji's interest in justice and democracy, his close association with the Samaj, it is appropriate to have him as the key speaker in tonight's Back to the Vedas session. So on behalf of the Samaj, welcome to Mr. Nirodji. Let's listen to him about how Arya Samaj shaped our lives in South Africa. So before I hand over to Nirod, please, again, I appeal to everybody, ensure your mics are mute. Make sure if you have comments and and any questions. We will have a time hereafter where you can ask and make your comments. But in the meanwhile, as the presentation is happening, please use the chat box to ask and make comments, or ask questions and make comments. So now over to you, Niroji. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sanjayji. I really appreciate everybody coming tonight to listen to me. Namaste to one and all, albeit virtually. I don't know how to greet the divine in you virtually, but with not knowing who you are, but I do in any event. Firstly, I must express my gratitude to our hosts and the Arya Samaj South Africa and its distinguished female leadership in this Women's Month. I surmise that I was invited to address you today for my family's heritage with the Arya Samaj South Africa at the beginning of the 20th century. For my own part, I am deeply indebted to my forebears for affording me the freedom of thought and the freedom to choose whichever philosophy that rang true for me. I consciously and out of my own volition entirely laid claim to that heritage, its literature, its geography, and civilization, which stretches back to the world's oldest religious treatise, the Vedas. I also found within the thinking of the Arya Samaj an intellectual fit. I was raised during the struggle for democracy. It became an attitude to life. I eschewed rigidity and the rules as oppressive of the intellect, which we constantly pray to hone. The Arya Samaj offered me the liberty to think independently and not to bridle my mind with the yoke of orthodoxy. I am free to reject any notion of Hinduism I feel uncomfortable with and embrace those that resonate with me. I think as an Aryan, I am free of restrictive dogmas and I'm not shackled by any one prescribed set of thinking. What made a particular impact on me as a young seeker was the Nashadya Shukta, also known as the Hymn of Creation, as contained in the 3,000-year-old Rig Veda. It resonated with me as it concerned cosmology and the origins of the universe. And I will quote the Rig Veda, open quotes. But after all, who knows and who can say whence it all came from and how creation happened? The gods themselves are later than creation. So who knows truly whence it has arisen? Whence all creation had its origin. The creator, he fashioned it, or whether he did not. The creator who surveys it all from the highest heaven, he knows, or maybe even he does not know. That's from the Rig Veda, chapter 1 to 9. I found this particularly poignant that this religion made bold to simultaneously marvel at the wonder of creation, yet express skepticism of the omniscience of the creator. One of my favorites in high school was the astronomer Carl Sagan, whose television series Cosmos, some of you may remember. He's quoted this hymn and he said that it was the first hymn that discussed the tradition of skeptical questioning and unself-conscious humility before the great cosmic mysteries. Being born into an unjust society in South Africa, where racial discrimination was legislated, compelled me to invoke some of the 10 principles of the Arya Samaj. It no doubt guided those leaders of yesteryear that aligned the Arya Samaj with the forces of democracy. Allow me to quote those that resonate around racial liberation. Our fourth principle, we should be ever ready to imbibe truth and forsake untruth. The sixth principle, the prime object of the Arya Samaj is to do good to the whole world. to achieve physical, spiritual, and social prosperity for all. And the eighth principle, one should dispel ignorance and promote knowledge. And finally, the 10th principle, all human beings should subject themselves in abiding by the rules of social interest and should be free to follow every rule which is beneficial for all. The indelible role played by various Samajas through its history in South Africa bears testimony to these injunctions. The glorious role played by Swami Bhavani Dayal, not only in fighting for justice locally, but also in Guyana, Fiji, and India, is trailblazing. His leadership no doubt inspired the movement to unreservedly pin its colors to the mast of racial liberation. This inspired other Samajas, notably Pandit Superstar Dupran and Dasarat Bandhu in Pietermaritzburg. While contemporaneously, my grandfather, Danny Bramdo, used his newspaper, The Leader, as a voice of the oppressed people in South Africa. However, indulge me as I change lanes from the given topic and focus on gender parity. I make this point of departure because I address you tonight on a month nationally observed as Women's Month. So excuse me my preoccupation with what Swami Dayanand did in order to ameliorate the plight of women in India in the late 19th century. The work that he started almost 200 years ago leaves much more for us to do in our lifetime. Swami Dayanand was forced into a form of Hinduism that was replete with contradictions.
Oh, that's right. Sure, he looks good for his age.
He was confronted with a faith filled with empty ritualism, casteism, dowry, sati, animal sacrifice, idol worship, polytheism, pantheism, untouchability, child marriages, forced widowhood, superstitions, and illogical dogma, much of which was devised by the Brahmin caste in order to subjugate society. His idea of denouncing the caste system inherited by oneself in lieu of one's birth was nothing short of radical at its time. Swami Dayanand not only sought spiritual reorganization of the Indian psyche, he also worked towards abolishing various social ills. Primary among these were widow remarriage and women education. He launched programs to support widow remarriage in the 1880s. Swami Dayanand also underlined the importance of educating the girl child and opposed child marriages. He proclaimed that an educated man needs an educated wife for the overall benefit of society. My grandmother, Saraswati Bramdo, as secretary of the Arya Samaj in Pietermaritzburg, worked on a door-to-door campaign to compel Indians to educate their girl children. Indeed, we were the first to ordain female priests as well, the vision and foresight of which we must always articulate and remember. In yesteryear India, and abiding by Manu's law, a woman had little to no freedom. I am quoting now the laws of Manu. He says, a virtuous wife should serve her husband like a god, even if he behaves badly, freely indulges in lust, and is devoid of any good qualities. A woman who abandons her own inferior husband is reborn into the womb of a jackal and is tormented by the diseases born of her evil. Now that we appreciate the context of our 200-year legacy, what about contemporary society? Moreover, being Aryan, we ask tough questions. So in 1995, on his first visit to South Africa, Arya Samaj founder and leader, Swami Agnivesh, was hosted at a discussion at the Vedic temple in the Durban CBD. I was fortunate enough as a youngster to have chaired that session with Swami Agnivesh, and he asked the audience, why is it that in India, they preserve 9 nights to worship the mother goddess, yet have the highest rate of female infanticide in the world? Why is it that gambling dens are the busiest on Lakshmi Day, Why is it that schools and universities are closed on Saraswati? I looked up the statistics, and there are about 300 acid attacks on women in India per annum. Add to this hundreds of rape cases per day across the country. So here we see, if we care to look at that Swami Dayana's work and vision for a just and equitable society, especially with regard to the rights of women, is becoming unstuck at an increasingly alarming rate. I won't delve too much into the rape and gender-based violence statistics in South Africa. Safe to say that a quarter of the women in the country have experienced some form of GBV, whilst there are about 150 rape cases in South Africa daily. Mind you, these are reported cases. The picture is far worse when one compounds the unreported cases. According to research by the United Nations Office on Crimes, Drugs, for the period 1998 to 2000, South Africa is ranked the highest globally for rapes per capita. In 1998, one in three, that's a third of the 4,000 women surveyed in Johannesburg had been raped. Women's groups estimate that a woman is raped every 26 seconds in South Africa, whilst the police contend it is one in every 36 seconds. Either way, this is a very worrying trend. From my own research in the Chatsworth Magistrates Court, more than 1,000 protection orders are made by fearful women every month. My work for shelters for the abused in Chatsworth were guided by the 9th principle of the Arya Samaj, and that is, none should remain satisfied with one's own elevation, but should incessantly strive for the social upliftment of all and realize one's own elevation in the elevation of others. Indeed, all the work done at the Aryan Benevolent Home is driven on this founding principle. In closing, let me quote the Atharva Veda, which, aside from echoing Swami Dayana's call for awareness, implores us all to search for answers and propose solutions. The clarion call of the Arya Samaj, as I see it, is to be aware. We need to be aware. And let me quote, "How does the wind cease to blow? How does the mind take no repose? Why do the waters, seeking to reach the truth, never at any time cease to flow?" And that's from the Atharva Veda. I thank you for this opportunity, and I look forward to your questions and intellectual engagement. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nirod. I'm surprised there's so much to say, and you did it in such a short time, and I'm sure you must have had a difficult task trying to condense this into the, in fact, you did very well with time. We thank you for that. People, we are now, as Nirod did say, we're open for questions and comments.
Who's speaking now?
Sorry. Okay. So I may please, as I said, we are open for comments and questions. I think it was some very startling and shocking statistics that Nirod shared with us. I didn't know, I knew it was bad. I didn't know it was that bad, especially here in our homeland, South Africa. So I'm sure, being Women's Month, I think, thank you for pointing that out to us, making us aware. And this is what it's all about, is just being aware. And somewhere we will find ourselves to ensure that hopefully we have the right people with the right will to want to eliminate this. But I think it all starts with us individuals. We can't leave it to lawmakers. As individuals, we need to be educated. We need to know better. We need to become better humans and move away from this atrocious crime, criminal activities, especially against the women. So thank you for sharing that with us. I love your interpretation of when you spoke about Arya Samaj and your affiliation to it, where you didn't feel shackled by orthodox practices. I'm certainly going to use that as well, because that's how I feel as well. But anyway, we are now open to questions. I'm sure it's quite an interesting topic in terms of the current situation in South Africa. I'm sure a lot of people may have comments and questions and clarities and so on. So what we do is you can raise your hand and we will pick it up, and then you could unmute yourself and then ask your question. Or if you don't want to talk, as I said before, the chat box is there. You could make a comment and or ask a question there. Okay, we have
Sanjay.
Shama Bairu there. Sorry, somebody, Nirod, did you say? Did you call?
Yes, yes. I just wanted to add, India celebrated its Independence Day. I think it was on Monday. And there were 11 men accused of gang raping a lady in Gujarat and murdering 7 of her family members. And on Independence Day, they were granted clemency from a life sentence and were freed after serving 15 years of a life sentence. Now that's just not on, really. It's injustice. And like, I just bring that up, that we let these people get away with these crimes on women. Yet those same 11 men would go and observe Navaratri, which is the worship of the goddesses and so forth. But we just allow this. And a lot of the rape that I've researched in India happens between castes. And the higher castes get away with it because the police are complicit and they also hire castes. And so those poor ladies that are of scheduled castes get their rights trampled upon and get physically and sexually abused just because of their birth. It's a horrible, horrible situation.
Sanjay, please unmute.
Yes, correct. Yeah, indeed, it is quite shocking, especially at Independence Day. And I'm sure these things we read and hear about every day. Shamaji, over to you.
Namaste, Sanjay Bhai. It's actually not Shama, it's her daughter Sahana.
Sorry,
I'm also listening with my mom. So considering and namaste to everybody, it's a bit of a controversial question. Growing up in KZN and the Arya Samaj being so big and proud in KZN, where you move to a province like Johannesburg, where our culture is unfortunately not, or the Arya Samaj movement is not as far and diverse as it is in KZN. We often find, when I have to actually tell a fellow Hindu that I am an Arya Samajist, we are always condemned upon almost. You take the easy way out, you follow an easy religion, you are like this, you are like that. And I think we've all experienced this in some part or the other in our lives as Arya Samajis. And the one question I have for you today, Nirodba, is how do we show our own, to avoid the ignorance of the worshipping of murtis? I get questions for it because somebody will say, but why don't you do that? Because I don't need to follow it because God is within and that's our teachings. But we get criticized for that. And I find that very often.
Okay, can I answer, Sanjay?
Yes, please. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Okay, in my own journey in the Arya Samaj, it was a bit more, like you say, derogatory at times of the way we do things. But I think your relationship with your Paramatma it's a bilateral one. There's nothing to do with society. You and your maker have a direct relationship, and for me, I've always had that. If I don't observe certain things, I still have that relationship. It doesn't matter on anybody. And if I could give you my own experience, which was very enriching, I relocated to Cape Town, and I've been invited to a Havan, being the Hindu holy month of Shravan. And I go there, and it was completely our Havan. It was an Arya Samaj Havan that was conducted by Pandit Govindji, late Pandit Govindji from Port Elizabeth. His daughter, Hemkala, who's on tonight. And I think to each their own, but it was in Monday with Murtis, and it's all good. And don't take criticism, or don't take, we must each coexist, because our relationship with our maker, with our movement, is a bilateral one. And don't really worry, and don't get into the debate and the dogma and all of that. You know what you want to do. I know what I want to do. Hemkala knows what she wants to do, and that is have that relationship. And I think that's an important thing. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, I think we'll need much more time to get deep into answering all of it. But I think the essence is about understanding and education. Make time to educate ourselves. We must make time. So, Shana, yes, I think you've got good roots. You've got your mom there. I know she knows quite a bit. She'll give you lots of answers on it. But make time to read more. You'll find the answers there. And as Dhirod says, it's very important. I don't think it's in our place to criticize, for one. Don't criticize others. And take criticism similarly, and enter into robust debates with the aim to teach each other and educate each other. That every God, religion, and the works, it's all personal. At the same time, we must make an effort to give the views of what, in a very, very careful way, without offending anybody, the Arya Samaj view of life according to the principles and Vedic teachings. But thanks for that. And thanks, Nirod, for responding. We've got a couple of questions as well.
Sanjay Patandine.
I beg your pardon? That's me. All right. Okay, there's one from Aarti Ben. Thanks, Aarti Ben. Nirod, I'm going to read this. I think you could also read it, but for the sake of everybody else, it says, you have said that the Arya Samaj had impacted your life at a young age. Why is it not doing the same for the youth of today? So that's up to you.
Okay. Let me take it. Take it on the chin. Aarti Ben, I face the same challenges with my children, and I make no apologies for that. And I think we need to inculcate with them, so far as I'm concerned, we need to make the religion a bit more fun. We need to do those Navaratri dances. We need to do Holi. We need to do fun things and bring them in. And then that's my own view. I'm a marketer. right, and a publisher. So we need to incorporate them in things that they enjoy, that we don't just, browbeat, it's only heaven and this and that. We need to make it more accessible at their level. That's my own view, and I'm open to correction. But we need to make it more fun. We need to engage them more. We need not browbeat all the time about the Vedas. Like we can go on browbeating about this and that, getting very intellectual. It doesn't appeal to me. I was talking to, I do business with a 3D virtual reality company in India, and they do some of my animation. And I know as a youth growing up, I used to enjoy those Amar Chitrakatha comics. I don't know whether any of you had them. And I met the author and the founder of that company, Anand Pai, and I mentioned to him many years back about how that influenced my life. But I got into the philosophies, whether it's Buddhism or whatever, or the Ramayana, through these comics, and it made things accessible. And I think access is what we need to think of as the Arya Samaj. Access to youth, access to making it more attractive. Because I read those comics, and anybody going to India would be bringing me 10, 20 copies of these comics. And aside from Archie and that, I read Amar Chitrakatha as a youngster. And it helped me, I think. It gave me a lot of knowledge in a simple way. And I think I wouldn't mind printing those comics today, for the Arya Samaj. If they come up with the life of Swami Dayananda, which I'm sure they've done, we must make it accessible. We must make knowledge accessible. That's just some of my thoughts. It's open to debate and further discussion, on a bilateral level.
All right. No, thanks for that. I think it makes sense. If I could also add, or before I do that, perhaps somebody wants to, regarding the current question in terms of the youth. Shawana, I see your hand is raised again. I would imagine that being a youth, maybe you want to add a comment. So if it's related to this, please share your views.
So the one thing that, Namaste Artiben, the one thing that we can look at reviving would be yoga camps. I mean, growing up in Durban, mom took us to yoga camps all the time. I remember it like it was yesterday. And I mean, having a daughter of my own, one day I wish she could experience what we experienced. It wasn't just about being at at a yoga camp, but it was also understanding the circumstances that everybody lives with. I mean, having to stay in the shelters that the orphaned kids lived at Aryan Blemland Home was a great experience. We, as a young individual, a memory like that lasts with you for almost forever. So almost looking at reviving yoga camps, and comics are a great idea. And also I think maybe we need to start using social media, because that's, I mean, if COVID taught us anything, it is that to reach the world and to reach the millennials and to the youth today is through social media. And it would be nice if we could, like, if you look at the elementary teachings and the essential teachings, we can almost post the stories. My daughter knows Swetaketu, and the story about God is all over because we've already started reading it to her. So posting stories like that where parents can read it to children, not only within the Arya Samaj community, but across the community, where people read these articles or these little short stories to their own kids growing up. And it instills those values in them from a young age to carry them through to their older ages. Just the thoughts from my side.
Thank you. Brilliant. And
Can I answer, Sanjay?
Go for it.
Yeah, some years ago, maybe about 6 years ago, Swami Arya Vesh came from India with a very prominent yogi, and I hosted a yoga evening at the Kendra in Greyville. And he came down and he has this book. He's a very, very schooled yogi, but it was written very heavily and academically. And then I showed him some of the books that were written by Westerners in America. And I said, why can't we redesign these books so that it's more accessible, full color, spacing? I'm a publisher, right? So anyhow, in that engagement, I realized that amongst the Arya Samaj India, there's a young lady called Kavita Arya, and she won the Indian Yoga Olympics. Now that lady should come down here, young lady, and we should do a book with her. And we should claim it as Arya Samaj, and we should put her on a book tour and get her out there and say, this is, you know, the winner of the Yoga Olympics in India. You can put her, you can add her as a friend on Facebook, right? She's very good. And we need to pull in that. We have the resources, we just don't connect. You know, we've got a wealth of yoga experience in India, we just don't connect.
All right. Well, thanks for that. I think just share that name and details with us, and we can see if it's possible to take that forward. I'll remind you, I'll drop you a text or something if you can share that with us.
Sure.
Good idea. Lots of ideas and lots to be done, obviously. And if we need to win, we need to communicate, engage, and not become complacent. Shana, thank you as well. I'm hoping are you based in Durban? I think, you know the ropes. I mean, you've been through it so many times, and I think you could be an inspiration to current youth as well. It would be lovely to have you coming in the forefront and leading, because you seem to have some very nice ideas as well. So please do join us. And I mean, you do remember those days with Mom. I remember you as well when you were the little girl. And yeah, we had fun at the yoga camps at the ABH. So let's start it again. Come, join us. All right, but thank you for that. We'll move on. There's another question. Second one was, it's from Pandit Shobha Singh. Question goes, how can we educate our government or leaders in dealing with citizens who have been raped, especially the recent Zama rapes? Yeah, that was indeed quite sad. Since you mentioned government, I'll leave that one to you, Nirod.
I'm hardly in government, but anyway, let me try and answer. You know, I worked in an abuse shelter in Chatsworth. So I looked at the stats of, okay, first of all, to answer your question, it's pointless talking to government. They're not going to do anything. We need to address the problem locally. So when I was in that shelter in Chatsworth, I monitored the statistics of protection orders coming through to the magistrate's court there. And what those women need, and I found that, is that, and I hope the Sri Samaj, if there is one in Chatsworth, would step out like our forebears did in Pietermaritzburg and go and hold those ladies' hands and say, okay, fine, today it's Shanti Ben's turn to go and work at the Chatsworth Magistrates Court because she knows the system and she does this every Thursday. And the same thing, on a Wednesday, we appoint somebody. Every day we have somebody holding the hand of that lady who is distraught and traumatized and needs support, and say, okay, fine, we will help you get through the process. This is what Swami Agnivesh said at that meeting in 1995. He said, you know, I look around at your Arya Samaj community here, you're all driving all these German luxury vehicles, you're all educated, but what are you all doing to ensure that that food on the school feeding scheme is meeting the child that it was intended to and not being corrupted along the way. You have the wherewithal. You've got CAs, you've got lawyers, you've got everybody here who can track that and can say, okay, fine, we dedicated 20 million Rand for this district in KZN, but out of it, these kids are still not getting the food. But you have the wherewithal to go and find out why that food is not getting to that kid. In the same way, we don't have the wherewithal to necessarily do everything. But I will tell you for a fact, that lady applying for that protection order needs a Sri Samaj member to come and hold her hand 1 day a week and to create relationships with the court officials and say, I am bringing this through, I will complete the forms, I will help. And I think it's a simple thing. Another thing I initiated when I was at the shelter is safe houses. So in Walbadak, in Shallcross and that kind of thing, we had a yellow door. So very often an abused woman would escape abuse in the early hours, or the late hours of the night, or the early hours of the morning, and she'll need somewhere to go to. The police station is not. And we had these mothers, house mothers in these homes that would take them in for a limited period of 24 hours at the most before getting their case to the social worker and the court and so forth. And the police knew these were safe houses. So they used to patrol that these are safe homes and this is what we need to do. And we need to ensure that these homes are kept safe. These are the type of simple interventions that we can do as Arya Samajas and as the Sri Samaj, or whoever wants to do it, that actually makes a difference. You're not going to make a difference with, I don't know whether you saw that clip on Minister Beggy Clele telling this guy to shut up. That guy was complaining that a guy has 300 dockets on his table. How is he expected to get through it? And that's the problem. You're not going to expect the police to do that. As he said, they don't even know how to spell J88, which is the form. It's like, we can go into court. You know, we can take a Sri Samaj from Phoenix and say, we've got 7 members here, 1 day a week or 5 days a week, you're going to go in and help ladies. Isn't that better? I think that's what we need to do. We need to make a difference where evil exists in society. That's our job. That's what implores us. We need to be aware. I think that's it.
No, thank you. Some good ideas, Nirod, and I think you may have had a glimpse of the chat there. President Arti Ben says she's probably making very good notes here. And, you know, in terms of some of the things we need to do. And I think that rape, like we do the prison service,
Yes.
you know, we do that. And I believe some of our priests are also going to hospitals. So going to rape victims, I've never seen it or heard it being tabled at some of our meetings, but this would be a wonderful idea as well. They certainly need it, definitely. Safe houses as well could be an idea, but some good ideas coming. We'll engage with you more, but it's something that we will take to our boardroom and discuss, and hopefully not only make it a talk shop, act it out there in some way or the other. So yeah, thanks again for sharing that. Well, there are a couple more questions here. Okay, there's trying to figure whether there's a comment. I'll just read it there. It's from Pandit Judy Singh. Namaste, Bhaiji, probably addressing you, Nirod Bhai. I think our youth need more activity in our functions. They get bored very easily. Then we have the older folks who don't seem to agree with the youth. Yes, youth camp holy functions are all exciting, including Diwali functions. The youth want fun. So well said, Shwana. Okay, so thank you, Panditaji. I think that's a comment. And I think we're all on the same page. Yeah, that's the way to attract them. And I'm sure, do you want to respond or comment further on what Pandit Judy Singh said there? She seems to be repeating.
Yes,
what
I
we
think
did.
I think as the Arya Samaj, we need a campaign. I don't know whether there is one, sorry, but we need a campaign specifically aimed. You know, I was at this prayer, Hemkala, you online. I was at this prayer at the Seva Samaj Hall in Gatesville. And they were saying that you must bring your children to Harvard, right? And then they said, okay, if your children don't want to come, bring your grandchildren. So that you bring them in from an earlier age. And I witnessed this. I was there. There were babies sitting on their mother's lap doing oven. Well, they weren't doing oven, but the mother was doing. So I think that we need to have a campaign like they did in Gatesville and say, come on, let's do this. And I was really, really warmly, you know, kind of not surprised. I would say I welcome that this kind of thing exists in a community which is so small in Cape Town. You know, that the Indian community is so small, but they get together and they do it. And we had about 100 people on a Sunday morning. And I said, yeah, that's wonderful. You know, like, I wish we could do this in Durban or Pietermaritzburg. I don't know whether you do, but I used to go on a Tuesday morning to Vedic Temple in Carlisle Street every Tuesday morning, 9 o'clock, with a couple of people, Kusiram Badal and so forth. Pandit Umar did the prayer. And it was about 10 of us, maybe, every Tuesday. But I think we need to say, you know, get somebody who's entertaining and get them to do the Havan and engage with the youth and bring them in. But there needs to be a campaign around this, I think.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. You know, you made this comment on bring your grandchildren, and I was engaging with some. I'm not too sure whether they could call them youth or elders or youngsters, but and I say this with all due respect to those that are caring individuals out there, caring for their value systems that we all hold so dearly. The conversation went like this. They said, unfortunately, we seem to be losing this generation as such, consumed by very, very different needs. I think somewhat I tend to agree to a point. And again, I'm pretty generalizing. I'm not being very specific as well. And what they said, we need to take these under 9-year-olds and hold them tight, keep them close, so close, and take them to their paces. They cannot be influenced into another direction. We got to bring them in a regimental way, bring these 9-year-old and unders so that we can recreate and ensure that the values continue. And I'm not saying the others over this age, please, I say it again with respect, that I'm not saying that they are not or they have lost the values, but I think we really need to make an impact down there. Interesting conversation, I thought. Okay, so we got more comments and questions. I'm going back to let's see, the Ujala's one, okay. Yeah, Ujala says there is an urgent need for providing support structures for survivors of GBV, such as the help with reporting incidents, creating support groups so that the secondary victimization does not happen at the workplace and within their own families. Very true. And most importantly, creating the safe houses or shelters together with appropriate counseling, support and interventions in place. Yeah, thanks for that. I think that's is precisely what Nirod, you explained earlier on in terms of that support. I think it's a brilliant idea, this counseling and offering support to rape victims and being there for them subsequent as well. I think it's important. I think the Samaj is definitely going to look into this. We are pretty thin with resources, but this is an important thing. It's an everyday thing. It's happening right in front of us, our neighbors and people that got so close to us. I think we need to do something about it. So Aarti Ben, if you're there, I think there's something we need to table amongst the many things that we are doing, but I think let's just see how we can slot this and prioritize this in some way. So thanks for that comments, Ujala. And Kenvi, there's more comments. It's from, okay, Pandit Basudev says, thank you for an informed discussion. It's much appreciated. Thank you, Panditji. Shamaji agrees. And then Pramona, sorry, I'm not too sure. I hope I got the name right. Her comments are, we can partner up with Thora Mansfield from the Open Door Crisis Center. They support rape victims, human trafficking, and prostitution. Okay, so let's pause on that one. And I think it's around offering the same support thing. I haven't heard of that. Maybe Pramona, you want to enlighten us how we, for time now, we don't have too much of time. If you could just drop us contact details, that you can give us more details about the center. There are many such entering such centers, but just drop us a inbox in the chat box. Give us your contact details, and we'll contact you in that regard. There's lots to be said, and I'm sure everybody wants to say lots, but we're going to speed it up a little. And we're going to go a bit fast because we've been very good with our times, and we want to finish promptly at 8 o'clock. Another comment from Nadira Rabipal. Namaste Nirod Bhaiji, and to all. We grew up doing Hawan with our families very regularly. We never questioned our parents and accepted what they provided. Today's youth wants a deeper understanding in what prayer we ask them to do. And unfortunately, we are only learning the meaning of the Hawan now. And for some, it's a bit late to engage the youth. Explaining and meaning of prayer must be done from an early age. Yes, yeah, agreed. Benji, it's never too late to learn. We always read, it's plenty of literature. We encourage, and you must encourage everybody, and we encourage everybody to read and educate themselves more. It'll ensure that, we are not shackled, as Nirod, I told you I'll be using that word quite often. We won't be shackled by orthodox practices. That's being on the extreme, but also more importantly, learning and understanding what prayer means. So there's plenty of literature that, and we must find courage to do it and question these things. Yes, again.
Can I come in, Sanjay? Another thing that I was discussing some time back with Ujala about is that the Arya Samaj, through its respect for women and ordaining them as priests and making them equals in society and in households, has broken, in South Africa, certainly in my household, certainly, the patriarchy. that exists within, Hindu Orthodox Hindu society. I'm friends with some Gujarati people, and so they were having a Navaratri prayer, and they normally, as they normally did in the 90s, and women weren't allowed to sit at that havan. And so they had moved this, and a friend of mine was told by the priest, the pandit, women are not allowed to sit at this havan. And then he said, if you're telling me my mother can't sit at the havan, I'd rather fire the priest. So I think it's an important thing that we break this patriarchy and we look at gender equality, and I think that's what another thing that the Arya Samaj has taught us. I know in my own household, the biggest mouth is my daughter. But it's like we need to break patriarchy, and that's something we must consciously do as male members of the Arya Samaj, and constantly look at women's rights.
All right. Thanks, Nirod. Okay, good people. We have to round up. I think we're going to end up going a minute or two past our allotted time.
Sorry.
Ati Ben, no, that's okay. I think it was important discussions that came about. Ati Ben, I think you had your hand up, and as president, I'm sure you can do our semi-closing remarks. Ati Ben, are you?
Yes, I'm still on. Sanjay, namaste, namaste, everybody. Nirod, an excellent, excellent presentation. Look, there's lots that's come out of this. Like Sanjay says, we need to get back to the boardroom and list a whole lot of activities that we are going to be going into now. And obviously, we're going to need your help, right? Especially with our publishing part of it. Currently we are digitizing most of our publications. We want to get them online and on the websites as well, so that it's more accessible to a whole lot of more people than them coming to us to get a book. So yeah, thank you for that, and thank you for all the lovely ideas, everybody. We do have a lot of work to do, and I can see that our ring is going to grow bigger. Thank you. Namaste.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Ati Ben. It's spot on 8 o'clock, and I think it's just about time. Thank you. We can conclude now. So just before, as a concluding remark, as Ati Ben says as well, it's lots to be done. Thank you, Nirod, for giving us these ideas. You've always been a good friend of the Samaj, and we would engage you to take some of these things forward. And also thank you for the presentation, Nirodji. Thank you so much for that. To all the participants and all the many guests that have made time here for this engaging and very informative 1 hour. Thank you all. And I thank lastly our organizing committee, the Vedas, for affording us all this opportunity to virtually gather here and have and engage into some very interesting discussions. So we look forward to having you all at our next session, which is the series on Back to the Vedas. Look out for this, look out for the messages and so on in terms of the dates and so on. The more details will be shared. So with this, I will say my namastes to everybody, and I will bring the lecture to a close and allow Pandit Shobha Singh to lead us into Shantipat. Namaste, everybody. Pandita, unmute yourself, Pandita. Pandit Shobha, unmute. Thank you.
Om. Om. शान्तिरन्तरिक्षं शान्तिः पृथिवी शान्ति आपः शान्तिरौषधय शान्ति वनस्पतय शान्तिर्विश्वदेव शान्तिर्ब्रह्मा शान्ति सर्वं शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः सामा शान्तिरेधि ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. Namaste to all. Have a good evening.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you. Be safe, everybody. Thank you, Karuna.
Namaste.